Wir sagen von Herzen Danke. Danke für über 700.000 begeisterte Kunden. Danke für Ihr Vertrauen seit über 40 Jahren. Lassen auch Sie sich persönlich und individuell beraten in Ihrem Küchenquelle-Studio Düsseldorf. Feiern Sie mit uns und wir schenken Ihnen 40% auf Ihre Traumküche. Alle Infos auf küchenquelle.de. Küchenquelle. Wir gestalten zu Hause.
Blog Talk Radio.
Chrism, you can't be heard. You need to log in on your phone. Okay, everybody. Chrism isn't actually being heard at the moment, so even though he's in the studio, I think he's having some problems with his equipment, and so I think he is going to phone in again on his phone. I'm just typing in the Okay, can everybody in the chat room who's there, Atlantic Seeker and Guest 434 and 440, can you hear me? If you can hear me, please type that you can hear me. I can see you in the chat room. Nobody is typing. This is not good.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Chrism. Okay, you can be heard.
All right. So much fun having technical issues.
Okay, Chrism, we're still having them. You've got some kind of a reason.
I'm going to mute here. Can you still hear me? No.
That's perfect. Yeah,
okay.
Say something else and I'll check your echo.
Okay, 001-901 coming in for a landing here at Blog Talk Airport.
Engage loud and clear. Excellent. Okay, Chrism.
Well, I did my oming already, but I'll try it again. Here we go. Hello, everyone, and thank you for your patience. Welcome to this program about your Kundalini Awakening experiences, and I'd like to say thank you to Santara, who really is the progenitor of this show, and its sole support. So I would like to thank you, Amelia Santara, right here publicly in front of everybody.
Ooh.
Yay.
Thanks, Chrism. It's an honor. It's an honor to be of service and to provide the I suppose, the monetary thing so that the show can go on for 2 hours and that we can put it on at a time that suits. So it's my privilege, and thank you for doing this every week, Chrism.
Yeah, it is. You know, it's an interesting commitment these Wednesdays.
I have stories. Have you?
You know, it's like wow. You know, Wednesday is taken. All right. Yeah, okay. Well, hopefully, we're at least helping one person, right? If we're helping one person, then it's all worth it.
Absolutely, Chrism. That's what I think too.
So here we go. This program seems to be centered today. This current program seems to be centered around the levels of absolute change that a person needs to occupy within their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions. And one of the things I wrote about last night, and I wonder if I should read it. Let me see if I can get on over to there. Is this this understanding that you know, you've lived with your ego for so much of your life, and it has been such a tremendous part of your Kundalini equation, And so, ego has learned to deal with all kinds of different things. Now, if any of you have ever raised a child, you know that around 2 years of age, they start to go through the teething process. Actually, maybe even a little bit before 2 years. And they're teething, and it hurts. It hurts to have those teeth, being pushed through the layers of gum tissue. But the ego learned to deal with the feeling and learned to deal with that pain, learned to deal with the aspects of teething. And then, a few years later, the ego learns to deal with adolescence, where the voice is changing and little skin eruptions are happening on the face with acne and the sexual areas are developing and coming into expression. And this creates a lot of confusion. This creates a lot of, some anxiety. And the ego learned to deal with that pain and that anxiety, and then the ego learns to deal with these types of pains, these irritations, because there isn't any other choice. And so this can demonstrate for you that when you take away its choice, you help the ego learn to give up its control. And this is what the Kundalini does to many of us. Not all of us, and not all in the same way, but for many, if not most of us, the Kundalini will take away our choices. It leaves us with no other option but to do what it wants you to do. And what it wants you to do is always in your best interest. There's never a doubt, but the ego will have plenty of doubts. It's like, well, how will I make money? Well, how will I make the house payment? How will I feed my kids? How, if I have kids, and if you're single, how will I feed myself? So it's definitely an issue for people to look at it, and we're left with no other alternative than following the divine will. And a purist would say, well, how hard can that be? Of course we follow the divine will. But in this context, the divine will is like such a radical changeover. It's such a denunciation in many ways of how we live in our society, what we accept as acceptable, what we accept as unacceptable. How we think, how we feel, how we interact with each other in society begins to take on radical levels of change. Because we are being changed. We are being transformed into divine flesh, divine humanity. The objectives of divinity take over control of the objectives of humanity, because we've had our whole life as humanity. And now we're being infused and we're being guided and we're being schooled and we're being taught what it is to have the infusions of divinity as humanity. And the reverse as well, humanity as divinity, and what levels of responsibility that incurs, and what levels of choice that incurs, or lack of choice. And so, it will fly in the face of all that you've known or expected or thought was possible in the living of your life. So it goes against the scientific method. It goes against psychoanalysis. It goes against these very, very young techniques and equations of how to figure out life in the world of the mundane, and we're catapulted, literally thrown into the arms of grace, which is so vast and so amazingly unending, that takes levels of transformation by the divine within you, that force of the Kundalini, to allow you to even begin to form any kind of a basis and an understanding of what is occurring. And so, the divine will, it can be the most difficult education that anyone could imagine, but it can be the most profoundly loving and accepting and healing and helpful. And as I said before, it'll fly in the face of all that you've known, expected, or thought was possible. And it can contradict every level of accepted societal behavior you have ever known or experienced or expressed yourself. So it can force you to face these extreme levels of fear and anger and pain and confusion. And it can also begin to introduce you into levels of love and bliss and completion and the understanding that, yes, this is the goal, the evolutionary goal of humanity. We are all to come into this, not all at the same time, but eventually, for those who are interested in completion of the human experience, we will all enter into the Kundalini and enter into the divine folds of engagement. But as you enter into that divine fold of engagement, it can force you to face the extreme levels of fear and anger and pain and confusion and greed and corruption and beauty and joy and helpfulness and healing, love. It can force you to face these extreme levels and to really begin to detoxify them away from the negative and further into the positive. And let's be clear, we're not trying to distance ourselves from negativity, from the negative. You can't have that flow of electricity. Not that Kundalini is anything like electricity, but energetically, you have to have the positive and the negative connected. And so we honor the negative. It's just not the evil, corrupted negative that we honor. We honor the ground, the earth, which forms as a negative pole for us. And we honor the positive pole as well. But within our behaviors towards the environment, towards the creation of the divine that we're being given to live out our lives upon this world, in the context, the broad context, the positive and negative, are natural, they're flowing. But within our behaviors towards it, this is what we're changing. This is what the divine guidance will cause us to want to change. This is why when Kundalini comes to a person, there's this extreme level of urge towards truth, an extreme level of an urgency that truth is followed, that honesty is followed, that doing no harm to the tiniest form of sacred life is followed. The ahimsa in our lives, the ahimsa being a Sanskrit word that means do no harm, do not kill. And you begin to, as you further yourself into the folds of divine humanity by virtue of the Kundalini, you begin to feel the at-oneness with all life around you. You begin to feel the consciousness of the stone, the consciousness of the tree, the consciousness of the earth, and the many layers of life that actually makes up the dirt we walk upon. We begin to understand the consciousness of the air and the wind and the solar rays that come from the sun. We can hear the words. We can hear the communications from these areas, in addition to hearing the communication from the myriad, millions and millions of forms of life that we're already familiar with: the fishes, the birds, the animals, the mammals, the reptiles, all of it, the paramecium, the bacteria, the virus colonies, the myco colonies for the fungi. All of these expressions of life can be heard, and often they're heard in the form of the na'ad, or the nada. You hear this, I'm hearing it right now. You hear this symphony of frequency inside your head all the time. And for some people, it's so loud, they've named it tinnitus. But it's actually a hearing and an audio observation of what is going on around us. And as long as you're on this world, you can hear that. And then even if you go off this world, let's say you're traveling to Mars or somewhere, you're still going to hear the frequencies of life, because the frequencies of life are not limited by range of distance. They're not limited these ways. The frequencies of life go straight into the divine continuum. And so like the divine continuum, they can onward wherever you are in the multiverse. Okay. And so it's very important for people to understand these levels of change that are occurring and to embrace them. You've got to be open to being led by your trust. And if your trust isn't so strong, then you're going to be given some of the challenges that will increase your trust to make it stronger. And literally, we only grow strong through stress. It's very similar to how we grow muscles in our body. As you do your push-ups or you do your pull-ups, you're tearing microscopic muscle fiber. You're tearing it. And you're tearing it to invite another layer of cellular division to fill in those tears. And as you do that over time, this is what builds those muscles. This is what makes those cuts, those muscular indentations upon our body. And those come through certain levels of pain. As we know, as anybody who's worked out, and like you come from that workout, you go, oh man, I am so sore. Well, that's because all those muscles have been torn and they're being replaced and filled in with new muscle tissue. And so as you allow yourself to be led by your trust, and you allow the challenges and you accept those challenges from the Kundalini, that makes that trust even a much stronger bond of compliance towards the divinity within you. And then you grow stronger with it, and you're able to accept stronger levels of stress in order to develop stronger levels of love, which will develop into levels of adoration and levels of extreme, the extreme poles of trust are developed. And so your ego is also going to have to be stressed in order to give up its illusion of control. And this is also what is done, because the ego, if you look at it from a lazy man's perspective, you don't want to get up and go and work out. You don't want to get up and do these things because you know it's going to hurt. And the ego just is not so into being hurt. It's just like, I'm just so not into that. And yet the Kundalini will force you to do certain things, whether or not you're into it. Like Kriyas. Kriyas are a great example of that. You're forced into this strange pretzel-like yoga position that you've never, been interested in taking yoga. You've never done it, but there you are. You're on your living room floor, twisted up in some sort of a pretzel shape and being held there by a force beyond your recognition. And the more you try to move out of it, the more pain you get. And the less you try to move out of it, the more complacent you get. And as you begin to breathe into that Kriya position, well, you're given even more levels of love, and the feelings and sensations become really good. It's a very Pavlovian type of training that the Kundalini will give the individual at the beginning of the process. It's just like, if you do it the way I want it, then you'll get rewarded. If you don't do it the way I want it, then you'll get rewarded with pain. So she teaches us from a very basic understanding of grace. And so for those of you that are having that, it's very important for you to understand that nothing is wrong with you. It's just that we have to be taught from very basic levels sometimes, and it's a natural thing. It's a good thing, and this is what she has adopted for us. So this is really the best level of teaching that we can participate with, and it's good. It's good, but it's not easy. It's not easy. I mean, as we've discussed in other programs, you'll be told to leave your spouse, and think about that. All of a sudden, Kundalini's, giving you the indication that your marriage is not working up to the standards of grace that grace itself wants it to be. And in order to help the other person in the relationship, leaving the relationship is one of the answers. And this is the answer often the Kundalini will pursue. Think about that. Think about the level of change, the level of pain, the level of tearing the emotional muscles that would include. What if the other spouse doesn't want you to leave? What if it's one of those relationships where one side of the emotional equation is far more dependent on the other side, which isn't so dependent? See what I'm saying? And so a lot of pain can be experienced in these ways. And even still, we must surrender ourselves and our lives to the inner divine. We must do this. And if you have a flesh teacher that inner divine has given you to, then you must trust that flesh teacher the same way that you're trusting the inner divine. There is no difference. I guess the difference is that you're hearing it from the flesh teacher into your audio channels, and you're seeing, and you can touch, and you can feel, and you can interact in a very normal 5 sense behind the veil way with the flesh teacher. But still, even the flesh teacher is controlled completely by the Kundalini. So we must really begin to change our behaviors. As you come into the Kundalini, your emotional body is going to convulse. And as the Kundalini makes the changes in your emotional arrangements that you have, it will convulse even harder. You'll have a lot of tears. Feel a lot of tears during your meditation. You'll have a lot of crying during your devotion. And you'll be crying and crying and crying for a long time. But if you have a job, all of a sudden those tears will stop and you'll go to work. But you'll come back, or you'll go on your lunch break, you'll cry some more, you go home, you'll cry some more, and more and more and more until the next day. I mean, there's a lot of residue from corporeal existence that needs to be cleared out from the body. And this is really a kind of a level of emptying the glass, so to speak. I mean, I wrote about this last night, and I'll read it. It's called Wide-Eyed Kundalini. And if you come to the Kundalini Awakening exclamation group, it's printed there. And basically what is said is this, is as you are awaiting the filling from the waters of grace, take the time to really empty the glass. Empty out the fear, the anger, the expectations, the attachments, the torments. Cleanse and scour the sides of the container to allow for a wide-eyed wonder of the waterfall of consciousness leaving your body. And what I mean by cleanse and scour the sides of the container is like, if you've been abused in your life, then you've got to forgive. You've got to balance the equation, whether or not the other person knows that you're doing it. It's not about them. It's about you. You've got to cleanse any kind of need or desire for giving back in a revengeful way, the treatment that you were giving, or responding to that person in a way that has been changed because of the experience that you had with that person. You can't change your behaviors. They still must come from total honesty and total giving of yourself. The difficult teachings that we receive from the Kundalini, they are supposed to be difficult. They're supposed to drive you in a certain direction, in a certain pattern of responses. And the pattern of responses that you are not to allow yourself to be driven into are those patterns that cause you to resist in any given way. And if you've been given a teacher, be it a boss or a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or like a scholastic teacher or any kind of a teacher who's been abusive to you or acted inappropriately with you, you are not allowed to harbor the anger. You understand? And if the Kundalini continues to force you to have contact with that person, you are to be completely submissive to the teachings that that person is giving you. Now, I had to do this. It was hard. I have to admit it. It was hard. But what happens is she begins to give you insights into why this is occurring and why it's important for you to have this. At least she did for me. Okay? I was caught up in a Kundalini-induced behavioral maelstrom. It was a hurricane of negativity and abuse and really difficult situations that I had to forgive on the spot, that I had to tolerate on the spot, that I had to show my levels of grace and gratitude for the abuse that was occurring upon me and to me, for the levels of Kundalini evolution that it was causing. You see, you're not allowed to be abused within the Kundalini context just for the fun of it. The divine doesn't sit up there laughing and go, "Oh, look at Chrism. Oh, my God, he's hating that so much." Divinity doesn't do that. There's a very, very strong and sincere reason why this is good, and why this is working for you. And you've got to embrace it. So, as the person in your life is emotionally slapping you across the face or emotionally abusing you and putting you through this mill of torment and hurt and pain and tears and agony, you have got to allow yourself to continue to experience it. Because the Kundalini will take you out of it if and when she is ready to do that. And if she is not ready to do that, she wants you to stay within it. The bottom line here, folks. She's in charge. She gets to make these choices that you no longer are allowed to make. Now, this comes as a very difficult teaching point for people. And I don't think I've ever said this on the show before. I may have alluded to it, but I've never said it like this. She will force you to stay into an abusive situation if she's seeing that it is, one, allowing you to redeem karma, number one, and number two, she is allowing you to suffer in a way that is helpful to you. Now, Michelle, speaking on the chat room, she says, I have been going through this for the past 2 weeks. Wow, Michelle. And Michelle continues, she says, 3 of my ex-boyfriends have come back into my life. Oh, my God, I hope not all at once. That could be exciting. I found it humorous anyway. And if they, she says, yeah, she says all at once. Well, blessings to you, Michelle, and chicken salad out of chicken, you know what? So there are definite things that your Kundalini and Michelle, we both know you've got the Kundalini and she's got you. And so as she brings these men back into your life, I think she's giving you opportunities for forgiveness, opportunities to make it right. Perhaps it didn't end the way that the Kundalini would have wanted it to end. And so she's giving you another opportunity. And she'll keep you involved with these men until she feels you have learned enough. And then they will be gone so quick, a blink of an eye, they will be gone. Okay. And so go out of your way, Michelle, not to have any revenge. If if they're damaging your physical body, then you really need to look at that. Ask your Kundalini if she wants you to let them damage your physical body temporarily. See, that's a hard one. It's like especially when you're dealing with boyfriends or girlfriends, because the idea of such intimate levels of abuse comes into being like opening yourself to be raped by the boyfriend or emotionally raped by the boyfriend or girlfriend. This is difficult. It's a stronger teaching. But once again, the Kundalini permeates all the 5 bodies of expression, even the sexual expression. And so if that is the way she's teaching you, then of course you're going to have to surrender to that. And Michelle says, holding back anger is hard and lots of forgiveness. Oh my gosh. She also says that 2 have left now. I guess so that leaves 1 now. And so, yeah, Michelle, welcome. Welcome to the star chamber. And you might ask, well, what is a star chamber? A star chamber is like a gravity well in the astronomical terms. This is at least what I'm being given right now. It's like a gravity well, and it's where an energetic expansion is met by gravitational forces that constrict it. It's like how maybe a neutron star is formed, or a black star, or I forget what the other terms would be, but as it expands outward and the gravity well pushes it inwards, tremendous levels of pressure and stress are placed upon that star in the middle of, in its formation, and that is what's happening to you, Michelle. And that's what happens to all of us within certain levels of Kundalini expansion. Expansion of its grace within us by eliminating any of the resistances that we form within us against that expansion. And what might, you might ask yourself, well, what would go against the expansion of grace within us? Well, that would be the fear of loss and the want of need, or the want of gain. You're afraid of losing something. You say, oh God, I'm not going to go outside. I might get hit by a car. I'd lose my life. And so instead of living your life, you live a life of fear, of refusing to risk yourself in any way, shape, or form, and that goes against the Kundalini. Or want of gain. You're like so greedy to gain something. And this happens a lot with people that are searching for Kundalini. They want the Kundalini so much. Well, why do you want the Kundalini, my friend? Well, I want to have those powers. I want to have power. Well, what are you going to do with that power? Well, I'm going to make myself wealthy. I'm going to make myself rich. I'm going to dominate those people that have been, and so they go into a revenge equation. And so, of course, those people are going to have a hard time finding divine grace awakening within themselves, because their motives are definitely skewed. And if divine grace does initiate herself within them, then they will be changed. Their attitudes and their behaviors will take a 180-degree change. And so this is what I'm talking about as well, is we have to give ourselves into the torment of releasing who we thought we were. Total personality revision. Total personality revision. And if you're being compelled to follow a teacher, and if that teacher says, well, I want you to end this relationship over here, and I want you to end this other relationship over here, and then I want you to, sell your car and sell most of your clothing and almost all your possessions except that which you can keep in a backpack, and I want you to head out into the desert. And and I want you to learn how to start a fire with wood, and I want you to learn how to make a solar still in order to get water, and I want you to learn how to collect dew on a cloth and to fill a barrel with the water that you're collecting from dew from the plants and the leaves and the trees, and to fill that cistern with water so that you can have something to drink, then you must do these things, ladies and gentlemen. You must do these things. If that teacher says, now you walk naked into the desert, then you walk naked into the desert. That's what you do. But it doesn't mean you die. It just means your idea of living life is radically changed, and that you must obey this level of change in your life. And that's a gargantuous change. It's like living a life of suburbia, and where you've got your cell phone, you've got your iPad, you've got your laptop computer, you've got your desktop computer, running your life from the computer, and you've got your nice new car. We'll make it red because Shakti is red, and you've got your appointments that you make in suburbia. You've got to, I've got to go to the gym at 8, and after the gym I've got a business appointment at 9:30, and after the business appointment I have a tea time with my friend from Juneau, Alaska. I'm just throwing that out there. And after tea time, well, then I've got to go back to work, and I've got to do my work until 1 o'clock, and then I'll take a late lunch from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 6, I'm going to continue my work, and then when I get home, I'll donate 10 minutes of my time to meditation and my practice. So this is the you know what, and people there are people that are living by that calendar. All of a sudden, Kundalini comes along and says, "Okay, get rid of everything and go naked into the desert. Obey." What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I'm going to ask you, Centaura, what are you going to do?
I'm going to go naked into the desert, Chrism. I'm going to. Sometimes I wish, anyway. I'm going to obey. I'm going to do my best to obey. Good. And this is exactly what you should do. I mean, there's, and the question arises, well, okay, I'm going naked into the desert. How do I survive? And what do you do with that question, Centaura? You trust, Chrism. You trust. That's exactly right. Because the next thing you know, there's some guy is going to pull up in a limousine. He's going to see you naked walking there in the desert. He's going to say, oh, my God, this is exactly like the movie I was planning on making. And you're going to star in it. And there you go. You never know. Well, yeah. You never know. You never know what's going to happen as you're walking naked in the desert. Yeah. Now, I've been into the area of Death Valley. I don't know if I took you there, Centaur, but I've been in the area of Death Valley, and I've been on the Panamint, Panamint. And if you ever look on Google, you look up Panamint, you'll understand what I'm talking about. It's just tremendously huge, dry lake bed, and I've taken students out onto the Panamint, and I've had them. I said, go, you're going to walk into the desert naked. And, beautiful women, and they just start walking naked into the desert, and they're allowed to go for a long, long, long ways. Sometimes in the middle of the night, and I don't know if you know how black dark it gets in the desert. And you've got scorpions and snakes and giant beetles and sun spiders and cactus, all of this stuff. Not so much on the Panamint. The Panamint is extraordinarily flat and cracked and level, and you don't run into it. You won't run into a cactus. Okay, you might run into a critter or two. You might, if you're of a size that is attractive to, a pack of coyotes, they may take an interest in you as a food source. But the Shakti will take care of that. She'll distract them away from you. But yeah. I
done as I speak, and I've had other people follow my instructions as a teacher, and force them to go naked in the darkest of night into the Panamint, disappear. And I've had them do it blindfolded. So even if they could see something, they wouldn't see it. And they're just wandering aimlessly without the benefit of even a night vision in this wild, totally flat desert area. And what does that develop, Centaur? What does that develop when a person is doing that?
Well, it develops trust, Chrism, and it also develops it develops a lot of things. One of the things it develops actually is sight. You begin to see.
You begin to see through your third eye.
Yeah, you do. You sent me.
I'm kind of interested in doing that again with some students. I think I'm going to set that up. Going out there.
Chrism, yeah, well, you didn't. You used to threaten me with that. When
no.
we used to travel close to it, you'd say, "This is what we're doing." But we never did it, and possibly because.
No, with what I gave for you was to have you buried in the desert up to your neck, and then just driving away and leaving you there. I think that's what it was.
that was it. That was it. Yes. That was it. There was a couple. There was also the leaving and the walking. But we never did. But when and I wasn't that afraid of it because we had done a lot of you had done so there weren't any critters and that could eat me in Kerry, but one of the things you had me do over and over was walk into the woods at night and take
during
off
a
everything.
Storm, during a powerful.
During a storm, yeah.
Storm.
Take off everything and then walk in a direction, meander away from where I had left the pile of clothes with a blindfold, and then put that on and find my way back. Do you remember? And that,
didn't I have you crawling? Didn't I? Weren't you also crawling on your hands and knees and all of that?
Yes.
With the blindfold on?
Yes, I was. And then I stopped hanging into trees after a while.
Listen up, Michelle. I just kind of give you an FYI.
Michelle, he's not joking.
Although we're not going to have you doing that in the outback. You don't get to do that in the outback. There's too many critters out there. Go ahead, Amelia.
Yeah, but yes. So it develops a lot of things, Chrism. The obedience to the teacher is a reflection and an absolutely real obedience to the Kundalini. And, obedience is a surrender, really. You're surrendering to the Kundalini. And then also the trust, because when you give these things, it is, it's kind of a bit nerve-wracking, because there are various dangerous things out there, like big holes in the bog and things like that. And so, yeah, you definitely develop trust. And then as really and truly begin to develop sight, I stopped banging into trees, I just knew they were there. I didn't have to put my hand out anymore and feel them, You'd have directed me to not do that, and then and you begin to see and sense, and the whole experience becomes it becomes a movement. It becomes prayer. It becomes devotion. It becomes so much is going on, when you're doing that form of activity. And, what you said about total personality revision, it's part of that too. because
absolutely.
your personality responses that you would typically have, say, in that scenario, aren't allowed. You're not allowed to have them. And so you begin to also see in yourself those aspects that the Kundalini wants changed and wants you to refine and wants you to leave behind. So there's so much going on, Chrism, within a Kundalini context when you're given an instruction like that, and
amazing.
you follow through on it. Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, I'd recommend it. No, really and truly, I feel blessed that I had that experience. I know people think that's probably weird, but it's not. It is one of the blessings that I've received by having you as my teacher.
Tell the audience what you and your husband did just a few days ago.
Oh,
not that.
Well, the audience.
The other thing.
No. The audience knows, I think, for the most part, that you give for me to do, these things, and going swimming in the sea and that naked, and you would give me various instructions with regard to staying underwater, how many repetitions, mantra, this sort of thing. And I've often done that, and I've had, it's been quite incredible, really. But recently, John had a dream, and I'm not going to go into the dream, but John had a dream, and he doesn't typically dream, and he doesn't remember them. And this dream was very Kundalini. I mean, as he began to tell me, I was amazed at how Kundalini it was. And anyway, long story short, Chrism said to me, and I was allowed to tell Chrism about this, John said. So I told Chrism, and Chrism said, Amelia, he was giving for me to go down and do follow his instruction in the sea, and invited John to come with me, and suggested that I ask John and that I say to John that Chrism wasn't an instruction for John, because John isn't Chrism's student, but he was inviting John to come with me and suggesting that he did. And we did. I said it to John, and John...
And John's not a water person. He's not a water person, right?
He is so not a water person, no, absolutely not. Would have a fear of water. Has got better over the years, but no, he is not a water person, and he's not an underwater person. And yet, when you gave the instruction for him to just go under for the count of 3, he did, and he said himself the words Kundalini, Kundalini, Kundalini. And he had a very profound experience of doing that and of following the instruction, the suggestion. We're not going to call it an instruction, the suggestion that came from
the invitation. Yes,
the invitation. Thanks, Chrism, because it was an invitation. And
this is in broad daylight. Was he without clothing as well?
Yes, well, what we actually did was it was in broad daylight, and there were some people on the beach. And so we went in I had a 2-piece thing on, and John had his, what do you call them in America? Trunks, is it? Swimsuit anyway, whatever. And when we got into the water, then we took them off and just wrapped it around. Fun. Yeah, wrapped it around the wrist. And that was the best we can do in that situation. It was a bit later in the day.
We're not inviting arrest.
No. But I have to say, for people, even to do that, to swim naked in the sea, you really can't swim ever again with a swimsuit, because you're so connected to the ocean and nature. It is. That of itself is something that can open change and open you going further with instructions and invitations. And John found that as well. So it was very positive, Chrism, very positive. And I haven't spoken to you since, but he wanted to say thank you.
Oh, well, indeed, and he is more than welcome. And typically, when you're say I'll just change the environment, but when you're out on the Panamint in Death Valley, sometimes I'll have your hands tied behind your back, and then you're left to wander for days and days. Kidding. You should be left to wander for days and days, but I can't do that because I have to make sure people.
I know.
People,
I can understand why you should. I really can understand why a person should, but I suppose it's not.
That's not
possible,
tenable.
Yeah.
The idea is not to get killed. Not that Shakti would allow it, but I have to be careful with people that way too. And I really am, almost probably too much so. But you're allowed to wander for the night. You're allowed to fall. You're allowed to not be able to get up. You're allowed to lay, naked in the middle of the desert as the sun begins to come up because you don't know where you are and you're blindfolded. Your hands are tied behind your back. It's still a very, very extremely challenging experience that I know Rosemary wants to do, and I'm sure Joey and Indra want to do that too. And I think that Michelle, it would do well for her to do that. I wonder if we can arrange that when she comes over. I don't know about Vicky. What do you think, Vicky? How do you feel about that? Is that something that you want to do? Vicky's in the chat room as well. So, maybe I will set up an excursion into Death Valley in the wintertime and set it up in a way that people can really begin to surrender into a wilderness. And I should back up a little bit. Death Valley isn't devoid of consciousness. There are all kinds of spirits out there. All kinds. From many different civilizations. Death Valley is basically a dried up lake called, I believe it's called Manly Lake, Manly Lake. And it goes back to the Pleistocene era. And just like some of the other tremendously large lakes, like Lake Bonneville and another really, really huge lake in Nevada that I can't remember the name of, but Pyramid Lake is the last remnant of it. And it used to go for literally thousands and thousands and thousands of square miles. Death Valley, this dry lake bed, the Native Americans have been here for a very long time. And so have other alien cultures, visited this world in some of these areas as well. And so there is consciousness to go around. And so with your hands tied behind your back and a blindfold on your face, you are left with no other option except the feeling of the wind upon your body, and the wind does blow, and the feeling of the sand or the clay beneath your feet as you walk. Because, once again, you're not allowed to use your hands unless you lay down on your back and you touch the hand that way. And then, of course, you're going to be getting back up on your feet again. So you'll touch it with your torso, and you may just want to roll around in the sand or the hard packed soil, and just get a feel of it. And this attacks our levels of cleanliness, our idea of cleanliness. It's like, what do you mean I'm going to roll around in the dirt? Are you kidding me? Because we live in such a sterile society where every day you got to go in and you got to use these harsh detergents on your skin in order to rip off all that oil and possibly a dust particle and wash that hair. So, we over cleanse ourselves in many ways. And when I have you out in the Panamint, I won't let you take a shower. And you will, anybody that's actually interested in doing this, you are under my control. You're very obedient to the commands that are given to you from the Kundalini in me. And I just read chat room right now, and Vicky says, "This is what scares me." Doing this type of thing, I guess. So you'll roll around in the sand. You'll get sand in your hair, in your ears if you fall. You'll get sand in between your toes, and the hardest part. I like to do it at night because it's an unknown thing, and you can really feel the conscious forces, the spiritual forces, and you'll really feel your Kundalini too. Tailbone might get really hot. But it's also this attacking the fear of the unknown, which the ego really responds to. Like, as you're spun, what happens is, I take you out there, and before I tie your hands, I have you do the first Tibetan. But I'll have you do it like maybe 30, 40 times so that you're really dizzy. Then I tie your hands. Then I push you into a direction, and off you go. And then 24 hours later, we try to find you. We call the rangers, and we basically start looking for the buzzards circling in the air, the birds that eat the dead bodies. So we start looking for you that way, and then we take lunch before we find you. Do a little meditation. Then we keep looking for the birds on the horizon. And then we casually stroll out and find you. And we shoo away the birds that are going for your eyes and tongue and things like that. Hey, how was it? I would love to leave you out there 24 hours, but the most you'll get is 8 hours of wandering in the desert, and that's a lot. That's a lot, and that can be very frightening. And the whole idea is to trust your Kundalini. It's enforced trusting of your Kundalini, and this is of your own free will, ladies and gentlemen. Your own free will. You must want to have this experience. If you want to feel your Kundalini in a big way, but this will do it. This will do it. It's in a way it's a prolonged version of skydiving, where you have to lift your finger, you have to make the choices, you have to pay the money, you have to listen to the instruction, you have to apply the instruction, and then you have to do the deed. You have to jump backwards out of an airplane at 16,000 feet and fall. And you have to fall in a very specific position. And you have to check your altimeter, and you have to check your ripcord, and then you have to check your horizon, and then check your altimeter, check your ripcord, check your horizon, all the way down to 10,000 feet. And then you have to pull your ripcord. And then, if you're lucky enough to have your chute open up, then you have to do visual checkpoints every 1,000 feet to steer your way towards, you don't want to land in a power line or anything like that, right? You don't want to land in the, in the wall of a barn or somebody's home. So that's not a good thing. You don't want to land on the freeway. So you, or the motorway, as the Europeans call it. And so, there are steps that you have to do as you're doing it. And when you're naked in the Panamint with your hands tied behind your back, you don't get any instruction except what she gives you. You can scream to the top of your lungs and nobody will hear you. You can run, and you'll just keep running for miles and miles and miles. And this is what it's like. This is what we're doing. It's not as easy as it sounds. Not that it sounds easy, but it's just not as easy as it's kind of scary. It can be really scary. The last time I did this, I was with two beautiful, beautiful women. And, of course, the more beautiful the woman, the more they feel they have cause to hide that beauty, which is so weird to me. But, and so we set up the tent on the edge of the Panamint, brought the car up close, which is kind of illegal, but I brought the car up close. And it was a rented car, rented Yaris. And the wind was amazing. God, it was blowing so strong. And it was blowing so strong we really even couldn't have a fire. And so we set up the tent in the dusk and hammered the stakes in, and because the wind was blowing really strong. And then when it came into the middle of the night, you're surrounded by a mountain range there. So even though you can have starlight, the mountain ranges make you the first 30 to 40 degrees of visual sight black. It's just, and they're big mountains and they're a long ways away, but they're enough to really occlude your visuals. And at night, it just turns into this black vision. You can't see anything with your physical eyes, which makes it perfect for what we're doing. And, I told him, I said, I want you to just wander away. Wander away. Let the wind push you. Let your Kundalini guide you. I did not tie their hands. I probably should have, but I didn't because, I have to feel what's appropriate for individuals. And they did that, and they were out for hours. I had to go looking for one of them, and I found her, and I guided her back to the tent, and they had amazing experiences from this. A lot of bonding, very bonding experiences too. So I never thought I would talk about this on the air. So here we are. And I think I will
follow that.
I would set that up. I would do another Panamint excursion, and we'd all meet, say, in Lone Pine, or you'd have to fly into Los Angeles, and then I don't know which is closer, Los Angeles or Las Vegas. I don't know, maybe Vegas. Vegas might be the closer thing. But you'd have to get yourself out there. We would say meet at a certain place. There's this weird, strange little city that's dead now, but it's right next to the Panamint. It's this place where they used to mine ore, and it's just like this lost little town that you have to kind of drive through to get to it. Kind of weird. This is also where Charles Manson and his family were out. They were out there in Death Valley somewhere. I don't know the exact place, but they were out in the middle of nowhere doing those bad things. And so think about that too. I mean, what caused them to do that? Well, I have to say a lot of LSD and a crazy man attracted a lot of negative entities. The LSD opened up those men and women to total possession. And as they were possessed, they created those terrible, terrible crimes. And this would not be the case with anybody working with me out there. Not at all. Not even close. So you don't need to worry about that at all. All you need to really consider is the communication with your Kundalini. The main thing. The trust, the obedience, and the actions based upon trust and obedience. That's the main thing. And Vicky Vaughn she says, well, I did think about Manson when you brought up that area. No. The Manson family would have done any of that anywhere they were. They just chose Death Valley because it was so secluded that they wouldn't run into law enforcement that maybe would have stopped them from overindulging in these areas. So yeah. Looks like Amelia has logged out. Are you still there, Amelia?
No, I'm still here, Chrism.
That's weird. It says the KAS1 co-host is logged out. Wonder if that's me or you. Anyway.
Is that in the chat room or in the chat room? Oh, that happens sometimes. That's okay. I can log back in.
All right. Okay. So anyway, if anybody has any questions about this or any other subject matter regarding the Kundalini, I'd like you to call 347-934-0026. 347-934-0026. This includes those of you that are listening to us live on Facebook. You can call in that number too, 347-934-0026. I am serious about this. I have done this on numerous occasions. And so this is not just a joke. I mean, we could actually do this and get down there to, down for me, over for most of you, get down into the Panamint area and I can demonstrate for you what that's like and have you demonstrate it for yourself. So once again, if you're interested, send me or send Amelia an email and we'll begin to set something up. Hey, Amelia, is there anywhere in Ireland that is similar that we could tie people's hands behind their back and have them walk unprotected but undamaged?
Not an area without trees and trenches and things. No, Chrism. No. Not really. I'm searching. No.
No, I didn't. Yeah.
No, definitely not. No. I mean, even if we were to go into the flatlands, grass, there'd be ditches and things. So there would be no place where you could walk for any length of time in any direction, No. You'd be seen.
No. All right. And you'd be seen. Yeah. Well, okay. All right. Now I'm gonna put you in the blue, Centaur, just for a second here. And I'm going to invite Rosemary on board here. And hi, Rosemary.
Hello, Chrism.
How are you?
I'm good, and I'm translating to the challenge that I find myself in sometimes when this work that we do is not, you say, no control in those deserts and all those things. Well,
right.
In these situations as well, it's not an ego control, and it's listening, and could even say it better. You observe it, but that's my application of what you're saying. It feels like being lost in the desert.
Well, yeah, it can be. I mean, as the ego loses its hold and control over the reality, the conscious mind is left kind of going, well, what now? And now is Kundalini. Now you just trust the force of grace within you, Rosemary, and you let that be the controlling grace.
Yeah, and the guidance. I mean, it's not my experience, not my mind. It's like I use that, but I know that it's something deeper and something else, and that's a challenge. Especially
well, exactly.
Yep.
And doing what you're doing, setting up a seminars, it can be a very big challenge too, you, Joey, and Katie. And speaking of seminars, I would like to say with a heavy heart that the seminar in Berlin has been canceled. And so for those of you that are listening that were planning on coming to Berlin, please don't, unless you want to visit Berlin just on its own. The seminar in Berlin has been canceled, and there is no new date for that seminar to be reestablished, although some plans are in the making for another date. But right now, until I have something concrete, that is not going to occur. So thank you for your interest in it, and thank you for your patience in listening to all our advertisement for it and all that too. So I'm just letting you know that the Berlin seminar, Kundalini Awakening Seminar, has been canceled for Berlin. But go ahead and make your announcement about your seminar, Rosemary.
Yes, our seminar this fall is October 28th and 29th, in the town of Mankato, Minnesota, which is about an hour's drive south of the cities and a little bit east of Rochester, if people know about that. It is at the American Hotel and Conference Center. We have rooms there. The phone number is 507-345-8011. If you'd like to get into part of one of those rooms, that's reserved for us with the special group rate. And more details of whatever you'd like is my email of rosemaryg@usinternet.com or 651-329-9615. And this time is, we welcome registrations now. We have that in progress, and it's the opportunity to share time with Chrism, with the teacher. I've not known, this is our fifth one here that I've worked on. We haven't had to get naked, and he hasn't taken us into a desert here or woods.
Well,
there's some woods.
There's no need to advertise it that way, Rosemary. That's not.
Yeah, I'm just saying in this.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't want you to say it in that context.
Sorry. Yeah.
It's
what
not
I
a joke.
Meaning, no, it's not. What I was going was, it is that within us that much of a journey, and not hard work. You're in a community. It's quite an experience, and where I was ultimately heading is saying those of you who have been to a seminar know that, and keep us in your thoughts as we continue our work here for October 28th and 29th.
Thank you, Rosemary. And so, just to reiterate what she said, nobody's getting naked at the seminar. It's not about that. It's about receiving. It's about receiving information. It's about receiving Shaktipat. It's about receiving the grace. It's not about having to test yourself in the ways that we've been talking about, just for clarity. So good. Now, Santara, have you had an opportunity to collect any questions?
Oops. Yes, Chrism. I'm back. I just unmuted. I'm just moving my mic if there's a noise. 1 second now, please. Yes, I have collected some questions, Chrism. The first two into the inbox are not on the group. The first question was, is there a change in temperament in the nature of a person in their next birth?
Wow. Well, yeah, of course there is. Absolutely. Temperament does get changed. Over.
And the next question was, I had a dream. I was persuading my college girlfriend to speak with me. She said, it's of no use now, etc. Finally, she obliged and said, if I taught her meditation, then only she would speak. So I went to the shop to find a piece of paper to write down, but I could not find any in the shop or any shop. Meanwhile, my friend vanished. After waking up, I realized she could be the goddess in the form of my friend. She was in a white dress and looked young and beautiful with a nice aura. What could be the meaning of this dream, please?
Wow. I think that the goddess in the white dress with the nice aura is probably the best explanation, especially because it came from you, the dreamer. There's also a refusal to give information within a certain context. Is that right?
Yes.
Didn't that happen? Right.
Yes,
so
initially.
Refusal to give information, and that's also very Shakti-ish in a way. She's not like a candy machine for information. You have to earn and respect the goddess before you can partake of the fruits that the goddess may wish to give to you. And so that's very important to remember as well.
Okay.
One of the things that I got when I was listening to this was this person had a strong fixation on this woman, perhaps she left him, or she left the other person. And so there was some strings still attached, so to speak. And there's that aspect to it. But yeah, I think that the Shakti would have given the information that she wanted that person to have. And from the dream, you would have received, also that the stores disappeared, and the fact that you were looking for a piece of paper, I guess, to write it down on, that disappeared as well. So it's not to be written. It's to be held and viewed within the inner book of our mind as we research what that feeling was like, what the encoded memory was like, and how it reflects upon what we do in our everyday life. So for you, the dreamer, you need to remember it, and you need to apply what instruction or what information was given to you into your everyday life, not based on something written down, but based on the trust. Once again, we're coming right back to trust of the Kundalini process within you. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. I had a quote from you that I wanted to ask you to speak a little bit on, and I think you have. I'm going to read it anyway. It says, you wrote this on the group: sometimes we must participate in every aspect of human frailty and excellence in order to reach that point of saturation where we can let it go as the Kundalini directs. And I wanted to ask you to expand on that.
Well, I mean, if you follow the, say, a karmic path of an individual, we've all been the murderer, we've all been the robber, we've all been the thief, we've all been the liar, we've all been, the negative aspects of humanity. We've all worked through those areas. And as we are working through our karma and wrapping up some of the loose ends of karma in our lifetime, the Kundalini will bring these expressions back into the forefront of our understanding, and we will feel those strange compulsions, and we may even act on some of them, knowing that, this is weird, this isn't right, I shouldn't be doing this, but boom, there you're doing it. You're participating in a theft, or you're fantasizing about some sort of a challenging quality that may just pop into your head. And then, of course, entities that will swarm around a Kundalini person will begin to expand on that negative action or negative thought or negative virtue. And depending on your availability to the entities and your availability towards acting out of these negative virtues will determine if you do it, number one, and how long you do it, number two, and what level of redemption you will need to do in this life in order to balance the slate for that in-life karma that you've created. And you need to do this. You need to do this, and she will have you do this in order to force you to look at the value of the Kundalini and look at the value of the noble qualities. Look at the value of the positive behaviors and the positive thoughts and the positive areas of life that really serve to move you forward rather than hold you back. And that's an expansion on what I was saying right there. Over.
Thank you very much, Chrism. Thank you. On the groups, I think it was the CAS2 group, this question came. Can you help me, guide me? After a month of meditation, I can see with closed eyes. What to do? What is this? Can I improve this skill, and how?
Yeah. You seeing with closed eyes mean you're seeing with other eyes. And it's very easy to do. It's not a hard thing, but when that door opens up so suddenly, it can cause a bit of consternation or fear of the unknown. What is this? What's going on? But it's a good thing. And basically, what I would do to practice it is just to walk around with a blindfold on, or just close your eyes and navigate around your house, or navigate around your room, or navigate around the Panamint in Death Valley and just begin to really see with that other eye as much as you can. You won't lose vision in your normal physical eyes, but you will gain the ability to visualize and to envision your surroundings from the third eye perspective. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. How does it affect one's radiance if meditate with head covered with cloth or wearing a band? I can see some swamis or energy healers wearing something on their heads while in trance.
Yeah, that's, the whole turban thing and the yarmulke, I believe, for the Jewish people. And, some of those nun hats are pretty outrageous. And priests, they have their little beanie on. It's not necessary. It's not necessary to have that. It doesn't enhance it. It doesn't, that's more for even though I understand they've developed a mythology of symbolism around the covering of the head, they have their spiritual reasons for doing it. Kundalini encourages naked and natural. Doesn't there's nothing in Kundalini that says, and thou must go out and purchase a hat to cover the bald spot on your head, Master Chrism. No, Kundalini doesn't care about that. Kundalini doesn't say, oh, you must have your head covered. Because I'll tell you what, if the Kundalini wanted that, then God would have made a covering, a natural covering for the head, like hair. Okay. And if there's a natural component within the endocrine system that allows the hair to be lost, well, then that part of the cranium should not be covered. You've got to follow nature with this, with the Kundalini. You can't follow the dictates of societal impulses and programs, of whether they're theologically associated or not. Over.
And Chrism, the person asked, how does it affect one's radiance? So would it affect your radiance by covering?
No, the radiance will just go right through it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
Because you got to remember, we're all wearing clothing. I'm wearing clothes right now, and my radiance is going right through this clothing.
Okay.
So is yours. Except we all know that you're not. But when you do wear your clothing in Ireland, it goes right through the clothes there too.
Yeah.
Except when you're.
Okay, so the next question then is, and I am sitting here with clothes on, and guys, I'm not in the car actually, just as a matter of, I'm not in the car with the broken window and the wind and rain. I'm sitting back in my apartment in my bucket seat with my full Wi-Fi and the chat room and everything. It's kind of cool.
And the waves and the waves crashing outside, right?
Outside, yes, because I do live by the sea here, looking right out on it.
Right.
So it's dark, of course.
When you stand on her balcony, you can actually watch the tide come in and cover the entire beach. It's very cool.
Yeah, and you can eat the salt and taste. Oh, it's lovely. It is. So, okay, the next question, Chrism, is I am suffering from depression and anxiety. I have taken medication. I stay at home all the time because I am afraid to be hurt. I only talk to my family. I hate society and friends. I hope Kundalini awakening will help me. So I started to research about Kundalini. Please give me some advice on what I should do. And I know you did, and there's a lot of advice, but could you address that here?
Well, some of the advice I didn't give was, even though, and I'm going to state it right now, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, members of the court, members of any and all systems of legality that are operating within this time period of the 21st century United States, European Union, Chinese socialist government, and the ruthless government of Russia, and Africa and Australia and the world. I am not a medical doctor. I am not a physician, in any way, shape, sense of the word. I'm a Kundalini-infused human being. And this comes from the Kundalini that has infused me. And it is in no way intended to be offered up as medical advice or medical knowledge in any way, shape, or form. So, that being said, I don't think people need to take drugs for depression. And so, if it were me, and if I was feeling depressed, Chrism was feeling depressed, the last thing I would take is a drug. And, that's an easy, quick fix that doesn't fix anything. It actually makes things worse because you become dependent on the drug for a good feeling, which means you become an addict. So you're teaching yourself to become an addict. And you know what? This is across the spectrum for the pharmaceutical industry. They want you to become addicted to the drugs that they give to you for your health. It's called better living through chemistry. And it's not better living. It's actually a very hurtful form of life because you become dependent upon a company's lack of compassion, lack of responsibility, and the negativity associated with a chemical that is being pushed out into the environment and flushed down the toilets and put into our streams and our wild areas, forcing the animals and insects and birds to drink things like Prozac, just because somebody's feeling a little bit depressed. It's a very selfish thing to do because it doesn't end with you. It's not all about you and your comfort levels. What you need to understand is why you're feeling depressed, and to go into the core root of the area of your depression and to begin to look at maybe some of the natural things that can help you with that, like getting outside, getting some sunlight, practicing forgiveness, practicing tolerance, practicing patience, going out and helping other people as a volunteer without expectation of having anything paid to you. Really, really going into this, and looking at it from an outside the normal societal response area. This is what I suggest this person does. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. The next question is, it's okay, I'm going to read this. It's not so much a question. It's my love, and she names the person, died 3 months ago. I've had so much after-death communication with him. He contacted me in so many ways. I heard that the Kundalini spontaneously awaken by a traumatic event, and then I've been trying to open myself up to the other side. They said for an empath it can be bad and make them feel crazy. I've been having negative things since this person passed. I'm totally exhausted all the time, and I'm not sleeping, and I'm anxious all the time with racing thoughts, and I feel so open and vulnerable and feel everything like I'm in between the other side and here. Anger fits like you wouldn't believe, crying every day at any time, super highs and low lows, strange things in my body. I can't go out into the public or grocery store because too much stimuli is getting in and it's very painful. I'm just not feeling well. I feel like I'm vibrating all the time and humming with energy. Chrism, don't be mean. Oh, I'm just wondering, did I actually leave out a big chunk of that when I copied it?
Yes,
the whole
you did.
thing.
I'll read the rest of it here. I got it here.
Thank you. I'm going over. Thanks.
And let's see. I've had so much after the death communication with him. They said for an empath, and she's assuming that we all know she's an empath. They said for an empath it can be bad and make them feel crazy. I've been having negative things since he passed, and I'm totally exhausted all the time, blah, blah, blah. And anger fits like you wouldn't believe. I'm just not feeling well, like I'm vibrating, humming with energy.
I read all that. Yeah.
I know.
Well, I didn't leave out any. And in chunk. Actually, there's two sort of similar posts perhaps on the group Chrism. So, no, that's the full group. I just went over.
The other one she wrote about channelers. She went to the channelers.
She did. So that's a different one, actually, Chrism.
Yeah.
So what I read there, could you address that with regard to somebody who is obviously in deep grief and is trying to contact the other side? Could you?
Yeah, she needs to let go.
I don't know.
Of the dead person. He needs to let go of the dead person. You're just hampering their next expression. You're just holding them back to the physical when they've gone beyond the physical. It's kind of like, they have to move on, and your emotional neediness is not allowing them to move on. It doesn't mean you'll never see them again. It's just you're not going to see them while you're living this life. Part of the lesson for the individual is to learn how to get through the grief of losing a person, to get through the trauma of having to think for themselves or to fend for themselves emotionally and otherwise. And grief can be extremely expanded within the Kundalini. It can really, really, really dig down deep into the core of one's being. And so they need to really begin to look out for themselves, but also to help other people. Just because you're an empath, and I know empaths use this all the time. So, I'm such an empath. The energies are so strong, and oh my God, it's just like, oh, please, get over yourself. Okay, a lot of the empaths, they're just doing that because they just want people to know how psychic they are. Oh my God, I'm such an amazing psychic. I just feel everything. Please, spare it.
Chrism, I've just gone over, and actually this lady has changed. She is, because you speak about channelers, I'm looking at the comments. So this lady has come in and removed all her comments in her post about channelers. So that's why we were both thrown. Yeah. So this is the lady who at the same time she was. No, because it makes people do that. It makes what people have written totally like.
Well, here, I remember it very clearly. She went to see
so
two channelers, and she's like, I went to see two channelers, and the channelers told me that this can be very hard on empaths, and one of the channeled beings said this and that, and that. Oh gosh, you have the Kundalini, and it can be very difficult, and it's just like such a generalized answer. And she went to the guy called, what's his name? Wrote a couple of books. Anyway, some famous channeler person. And it's just like, oh my God, and the whole article's being phrased, or the question's being phrased around the magnificence of these channelers and out there. Oh, so right, and I'm in his channeling school so that I can learn about what they're saying and channeling, and she went on and on about channelers, right? And then I wrote channelers, yes, channelers, and then I had kind of like a neutral face. And then she asked me, what do you mean by yes, channelers? And I said, first of all, I'm sorry for your loss. May your inner grace receive your tears and replace them eventually with understanding and benevolence and happy stability. Regarding channelers, I'm not supportive of possession techniques to receive information from the dead like what channelers do. I don't care how famous they are. Enlightenment is an inside condition, not what some discarnate entity says of anything. Entities lie. Let that entity be born into the human condition rather than to try to advise the human condition from the sidelines outside of life. If one needs to be possessed in order to obtain information, then let it be from grace rather than from some spiritual or energetic parasite. Those are some of my thoughts pertaining to entities and channelers.
Thank you, Chrism. Thank you. I wouldn't have read that out had I realized so, but it's good for other people to hear.
This is kind of
She did,
interesting.
and I didn't realize it. Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, and the person says they're just curious. Does this process, meaning Kundalini, heal the body of you have anything wrong with you medically or issues that may be hereditary?
Read that again.
Yeah, it's badly phrased. Does this process heal the body of anything that is wrong with you medically or issues that may be hereditary?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It can heal worst things. It can heal spinal bifida. I mean, it can heal AIDS. It can heal. It's an exceptional healing. It's an agent of healing. Seriously.
Can we do some yoga asanas during Kundalini arising for stretching our body so energy can flow smoothly?
Wait a minute here. I'm about to be attacked. Honey, you have to go down. I'm sorry. No, we're not having a pet session. Get over there. Go ahead, Amelia.
I'll read it again. Can we do some yoga asanas during Kundalini arising for stretching our body so the energy can flow smoothly?
Well, not if you think that your asanas are actually making the energy flow smoothly. In other words, I don't want the person to get the idea that they're in control of whether or not the energy flows smoothly. If the Kundalini is compelling the person to do yoga, then that's a different story. That's a very good thing. But the Kundalini will flow as smooth as it wants to flow through you, but it will encounter blockages because the ego typically puts up blockages against behaviors or realities that the ego is not comfortable with. And so the ego basically puts its foot down and says, no, I'm not going to do that, or no, I'm not going to believe that. And, that's not because you're not doing enough yoga. That's because the ego is putting up a blockage. And so you can do the yoga if she's compelling you to do the yoga, and you can do that as an action of obedience. But to do it just because you think that you're going to be, in control of your body's response to Kundalini is probably an erroneous attitude. Over.
Thanks, Chrism. Why would Kundalini people hear things moving during the night, sounds and bangs and that sort of thing?
Because they're tuned into the spiritual world, and the spiritual world will certainly make those sounds and those noises. I hear that stuff all the time. It's no big deal. Pretty soon you filter it out. It's just part of your night. I sleep with the window open, and I can hear footsteps outside the window. I can hear all kinds of different things, and sometimes a real person's there, and I have to chase them away with my machine gun. Kidding, just a joke. Sometimes they're not there, but I notice like my cat Lasha, who will sleep right next to me, she'll jump up and her ears she'll be tracking the sound, and sometimes she's tracking an entity right over the ceiling. So it's, the bangs and the sounds and the creaks and the chirps and the crackling and the cupboard closing and the silverware jingling. These are all sounds that are intended to distract a person towards fear. But I'll tell you what, the more you hear it, the more boring it gets. And the more boring it gets, the less fearful it gets. Don't let yourself be tricked. Just trust your Kundalini. And trust your grace, really beyond anything else. And things will go well.
Thanks, Chrism. You said on the group today, I think it was today, I do not teach a non-dualist platform here. And you spoke, I'm just wondering, could you speak a little bit about, if somebody is very much into the non-dual, that whole philosophy.
Sure.
Could you speak a bit about that?
I'll
Thank
speak
you.
About that, sure. Yeah, there's a whole group of authors and devotees that are they're just so interested in non-dualism, and they developed their own language, and it's a pattern of language and a pattern of logic that they have developed that supports their theories of non-dualism so well and so perfectly that no, you can't really talk to them about it, because it's they're saying things like, well, even though we're having this conversation, you're not there, and neither am I. You're not there, I'm not here, and we're not here together. And you can say, well, we're definitely here. Well, no, we're not. So basically, you have to believe what they say. It's or you're not, or there's no point in even talking to the person. And so, they really they formulate this whole reality, and it's a created reality. It's something that they use in order to point everyone in the direction that it's all one, everything is one, there's nothing else, and it's just the way we say that one is and nothing else. And so I don't believe in that. The thing that maybe I would have if I didn't have the Kundalini, and none of these men really do, and it's mostly men. And they'll get up in front of that audience and they'll say, oh, because I went to, I watched some of these people, it's like, I'm just kind of going, oh boy, they're just going on. First of all, they don't do any ego work at all, and so they're so full of themselves. That's number one. And so they're really going off of their own publicity, so to speak. And then they're really so full of their knowledge. And it's just like, oh, yes, I am so smart. I am I'm the best. And of course, you'll all agree with me, right? And I hold myself back. I say, anything about Kundalini? I don't ask those questions. I just kind of like sit there in the audience. And, they wax and they wane about the non-dualistic aspects of society and how we are all one and everything is one, and we're not here because within the oneness, the all is one and the one is all, and there is no separation between people, and blah, blah, blah. And I felt, in a response to somebody last night, that kind of an issue coming up, and so I wrote that. And basically what I'm saying is that the divine has given us the ability to learn what it is to overcome, to change, to transform. There may be a level of oneness in all things, that if you feel that the Creator is confined by the limitations of your mental expectations of what your logic wants you to know that makes sense to your ego, then you will conform those thoughts and those presentations to the standards that cause your ego the most comfort. Remember, these people are not doing any ego work at all. And so, the whole all is one non-dualism comes through, and they base it on what's the name of that country? Shaivism, from a northern part of India, on the Pakistani border. Actually, it's Kashmir Shaivism, and they base it on some of the people that actually do have the Kundalini, and they talk about it. But they expand their own version of it. They enter their ego into it, and their design into it, and of course, all fingers point at them, saying, "Yay, you're so smart." And basically, what my Kundalini has taught me is that we've been given the opportunity to evolve, and evolution requires duality. Evolution requires duality, and it requires the two that are one and the one that is two. This is a divine equation. And regardless of whether or not there is both within the equation of the multiverse. You notice I said multiverse, not universe. Multiverse. Duality and plurality happening at the same time. Plurality is also a reflection of God and the Creator, just as duality or non-duality is. It's not all one way or the other. It can be both ways at the same time. And this is what these practitioners don't like to hear, because it's got to be their way. It's got to fit within the language of logic that they have persuaded themselves to feel. When I was doing a conference in London a couple years, he just kept circling back to the same thing, just like, oh, but we're not here, and you're not either. And it's like, please, be a little more creative, something. So, yeah, we are plural, and we are singular at the same time. So we are not non-dual creatures, and we are at the same time. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. And the other thing that I want to really touch base on is the divine mind is so much more complex and has so much more information than the human behind the five senses has the capability to grasp. A divine mind is very smart and extremely unlimited within its expression upon this world. No group of guys who want to dance around saying, everything is one, and expect all the other people to dance around with them, yelling the same thing, is going to change the fact that at least within the perspective of Kundalini, the two that are one and the one that is two is a definable truth within the awakening of grace within the human being. Over.
Thank you for extending on that. I love to hear you talk on that, Chrism. Thank you. The dragonfly and Kundalini, is there a significant connection between the two? This person had one other doing up yesterday.
Dragonflies, even though they're not a top-of-the-line predator species, they may be, though. I forget what they eat. But they are definitely like a butterfly. Now, a butterfly is also not a predator species, and yet the Kundalini will use butterflies and dragonflies as messengers of her grace, coming to an individual or coming around an individual on this world. And so dragonflies and butterflies are very much a part of the communication that Kundalini will give to a person in dreams or in visions and in actual real-life conditions. And you'll even notice that some of those little tiny dragonflies have that iridescent blue quality that is so sacred male. Sacred male, and very beautiful. And yes, they are part of the Kundalini continuum. Over.
Times we have. We're okay for another question.
Sure.
Lately, I am making various sounds from my throat and feeling various chords. Today I made sounds using lips and tongue and the hard palate in the mouth. It's beautiful, and I'm seeing various visions with that. But I feel there is a lot of mucus blocking my throat, nasal area and chest. It doesn't help when I'm making these sounds, and I stop many times. Are there natural remedies to clear the mucus that you can share? I feel my throat is blocked. Thank you.
Yeah, I would stop eating yogurt or cheese or drinking milk or partaking of dairy products. Those are very much phlegm-producing type of products. That includes butter and cow butter. Look at your diet. Look at what kind of sugars you're eating and the types of things that can develop saliva. Pickles, anything salty will develop saliva too sometimes. And so you can use that. Lemon and ginger can clear it out. And so can horseradish. Can also clear out the sinus membranes. And as the sinus membranes can be cleared out, so can the top portions of the lungs be cleared as well. Lemon tea can work, or just lemon in hot water can work very well to clear that out as well. There's many home remedies for this. This is not an unknown scenario for people to have. So I would try and look that up. Don't take any of the over-the-counter or under-the-counter medicines for that, though. No, you look for the natural things. I think you're being predilected to do. So follow that guidance and see what works best for you. Over.
Thank you, Chrism. Could I now give the website, please? I would like to make that announcement. Yes. Yeah. So I would like to invite people to make a donation to support the work that Chrism does. It does a huge amount of work for people with Kundalini, not just here. I know some of you tune in here every week, and there are others of you who are reading his teachings on the websites, and these are all given for you and to assist you. And he also does so much more than even that. It's his full-time work, his full-time life of service to Kundalini, devotion to Kundalini, and helping people in their process, in their difficulties. And for this reason, I would ask if people are in a position to support Chrism in this work. You are also supporting all of us and all the people in the future and in the present that are benefiting from this full-time work that he does, and that he does not ask for any fee or any, he does not charge for this, he does freely. So if you're listening to this, and if you're reading the teachings, and if they're assisting you, and you're in a position, I really would ask you to donate. It can be a small donation, it can be a large one if you're in a position to do that. But please don't hold back because you feel your donation is too small. Always look after yourself, but if you're in a position to donate, please do. And I'm going to give you the website to do that. You can go to the Safeties website, www.kundalinisafeties.com. At the end of every page, there's some writing. It says about Chrism, and down at the end, there's a few words that says where you can donate here. I think it says donation. So that's the kundalinisafeties.com. And you can also go to chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com, and there's a button there that says donate on it, and that's also easy to do. So thank you for listening. I haven't made this announcement for a couple of weeks, and I suppose for now I'm making an appeal for donations, please, if you're in a position to do that. And thank you for listening. And that's all for me anyway, Chrism. So see everybody next week. And thank you all very much.
And thank you, Amelia, for that announcement. And thank any and all people who have the ability and the generosity to donate as well. It is well used. And that's what I have for this week as well, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. And I will see you next week on this Kundalini channel at this Kundalini station. And we'll end it like we started it. And here we go.